Hello, and welcome back to another Robin Hood moment. Investments in education have been part of Robin Hood's DNA since our founding. We have a long history of investments in tutoring, more recently high-impact tutoring with wraparound services for students and their families, improving community schools, and exploring every opportunity we could to improve high school retention and graduation rates. But charter schools are a significant part of the arc of the story to elevate the quality of education in New York City's public schools, and Robin Hood has been a big champion of charters. I'm Crystal Cooper, Deputy Director of Communications here at Robin Hood, and we're so glad that you've joined us. Today, we're discussing charter schools, and I'm so thrilled to be joined by Emary Aronson, Chief Knowledge Officer and Senior Advisor to the CEO. Emary, why is the charter option so important for parents and kids? And why did Robin Hood get involved in the push for securing and sustaining charter schools in New York City?
Thank you for inviting me to join you, and thank you for the question. Let's go back to the beginning. Charter schools were the first real public, and still the only real public school option that's different from going to your local school. In so many ways, that's what we're looking for. How is it that parents get choice over the education of their children that's not going to be defined by how much money they have or by their resources, but that they can get a very high quality education? What charters did right from the beginning was they showed that you could really provide very strong educations and full services to the students of New York City through thinking about education in a slightly different way than the larger public school system had or traditionally had. And so they were smaller, they were more personal, they had longer school days, they had longer school years, and so they provided all these additional services that parents were really craving. And what they got in return for that, what you had to do in return, was they were highly accountable, and they produced the results that demonstrated that accountability. And so they had autonomy, but they traded accountability for it. And it was all about how is it that you actually provide options to parents. And I'd also add, as a graduate of the New York City public school system, 3rd and 12th grade, you look at these schools and this is about where is it that you want us in your own child.
Charter school enrollment continues to climb even through the pandemic. Overall, charter school enrollment saw a 9% increase between the 2019 to 2020 school year and the following 2021 to 2022 school year. This is an issue that is often met with some political sensitivities. Can you dispel the myths around charter schools and their contributions to student performance?
Absolutely. So, a couple of issues, right? During the pandemic, charter schools really showed what it meant to be in a smaller school environment, to actually know your students. And so how do you get access to the internet? How do you get the technology that you need? How do you check up on all the families? And so parents who had, guardians who had children in charter schools actually were more content with the education that their kids were getting, and they went and told their friends. On the other hand, there is a statutory limit to the number of charter schools that exist in New York State and in New York City. New York City has reached its limit, reached it a while ago. And so the only way you can get a new charter school would be if the state legislature actually approved raising the cap on charter schools for New York City. And at this point, charters are about 15% of the New York City school population. They tend to outperform the city schools and certainly their local neighboring school, if you look district by district. And at the heart of it, we all want good education for all children, but sometimes we see things differently.
So we're sitting here today, about 25 years after the first charter school opened in New York City. And this comes just as Governor Hochul is set to reauthorize 14 charter schools to open in New York City and 22 across the state. This is obviously very big news. For folks who might be reading this news, can you help us understand what are so-called zombie schools and how can reviving them, as Governor Hochul has decided to do, benefit low-income New Yorkers?
Zombie is an interesting term. It probably needs a little bit of a marketing campaign here. But the reason they're called zombies is because these were schools that either opened and were closed or never opened. And what happens is the charter just basically disappeared. And so the notion is that we're not changing the cap at all on anything. We're just reopening schools because there's nothing that exists there. And another 14 schools for New York City, which is how many charters have been lost. Another 14 schools for New York City means that what you're getting is another set of opportunities for really good educations. Particularly, charters serve more students of color. They serve more low-income students than across the average across the city. And they have higher high school graduation rates and more opportunities for long-term success and for mobility from poverty.
Amazing. Is there any precedent for lifting the cap, or is this a first-time feat for Governor Hochul?
New York has actually lifted the cap twice, but this is the first time that we've gone to what about these schools that once existed that don't exist anymore. It's actually a huge achievement to get these 14 schools, and I think hopefully a good precedent.
Right. So on the topic of historic achievements, you and I were chatting the other day, and you mentioned that the development of charter schools really accelerated during the Bloomberg administration. I'm curious if you could take me back to those years. There was a desire on behalf of Mayor Bloomberg to make charters in New York City synonymous to tech in Silicon Valley, and Robin Hood was integral to realizing that vision. I'm assuming it's because of the incredible results you were seeing in the lives of children. Can you walk me through the difference in the educational landscape pre the charter boom and post the charter boom?
I'll go back even slightly further than that, which is to the 1990s, to education in New York in the 1990s, when Robin Hood was really getting our feet under ourselves. We were huge investors in after school. Why did we invest in after school? Because you didn't want to extend the school day. You wanted to change that dynamic. New York City was going through a real educational struggle. And what charter schools did was say, oh no, what you want is a fully integrated, longer school day where you're going to provide all of those services, where you're going to look at the whole child and you're going to understand and you're going to work with each child for whatever their needs may be. And you can work with the whole family and you can address all of those needs, whether those needs are about food or they're about other issues. That here you have a school system, a charter that's giving you that really personalized attention. And it was so appealing for Mayor Bloomberg when he brought in Joel Klein to be the school's chancellor, who was an antitrust lawyer. And what he said was, how do we bring innovation into this very large system? Bear in mind that New York City had 1.1 million children, that we had more people working for the New York City Department of Education, called at that time now New York City Public Schools, than population of Albany. It is an enormous system. And we talk about like 75 or 80,000 teachers. So what he said was, how do we bring innovation into it? And what does Robin Hood know more than what we want to do is we want to bring innovation into work, innovation that's going to pair with accountability. And so this was a perfect match for us all.
At Robin Hood, one of our core operating principles is to partner with government and across sectors to help fund smart bets, whether in education or in other issue areas that fight poverty. I'm curious what role Robin Hood and our relationships played in the fight to lift the cap in Albany this session.
That's such a good question, Crystal. And let's remember, we do not do traditional lobbying at Robin Hood. In fact, we don't do anything traditional, right? We are about innovation. We are about change. We are about how we bring new ideas into this work. And you can see it most clearly in education and in the charter world, because this is all about how is it that, what can we learn? How do we bring in? How do we infuse it into education? And so what Robin Hood does is we look to say, how do we bring people together, or how do we learn from other sectors? And here it is in the charter work, in the current work, and in the past, we are all about how are those relationships built, and how do we then advance the needs of the city and our mission.
Before we wrap, Emary, let's get personal. Is there a particular charter project that you felt especially passionate about? And can you tell us what makes it such an enduring memory for you? We're so lucky that we get to sit down with someone who's been here since the very beginning.
There are so many of them. And I'll say that some of the early years, everything wasn't quite smooth. But if you travel with us to the South Bronx and the Bad Haven community and look at the KIPP High School, or if you go to Crown Heights and you can see Uncommon and Achievement First High School, and you see these incredible buildings that we were part of building, what you get to see is a physical manifestation of what a high-quality education is. I mean, you can't touch a high-quality education, but you can certainly look at that building. The outside exactly matches what's going on inside those walls. And so we've had the privilege at Robin Hood and the honor at Robin Hood of partnering to build that, partnering to build Relay Graduate School of Education, which started by working with the charters, of helping to expand so many of the charter movement schools, and really now watching students who had been the first children in those classes coming back and teaching in their schools, coming back and becoming administrators, principals in their schools. I mean, that's what we want for every organization, right? To be able to show that success.
That's very special. Emary, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And thanks to all of you for listening. We hope you join us for another Robin Hood moment in the future.